Greetings, all you Toss and Hunters, Rakaris, Waddies, Innis, and Nolinus, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Hi.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 19, Duet. Alternate title, Nanovisitors Acting Real.
My alternate title was The Cardassian in the Glass Booth, because apparently the episode concept is based on a play called The Man in the Glass Booth.
Ah, interesting. We'll come back to that, because I had some thoughts about some stuff this reminded me of. A quick note on spoilers, in case our rewatch is your first watch, and I got a comment today that confirmed that's true for at least one person.
Wow.
Expect full spoilers through this episode, and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series.
I'm sorry for you, that one person. We spoiled some stuff.
Yeah. I think they're watching the Mild Fuzz guys, who are a little bit behind us, so we didn't spoil anything major. We said the word Jim Hadar once or twice, and maybe some other things. Yeah, we won't spoil anything too big, like the time Quark and Odo fought to the death inside a volcano. Like, we won't reveal who won that fight.
The only one that died.
This episode originally aired June 13th, 1993. It was written by Peter Allen Fields, story by Lisa Rich and Gene Kerrigan Fauci, and directed by James L. Conway.
I don't know who any of those people are.
I've heard of Peter Allen Fields. I think he's written a few episodes so far.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard any of these other people, though. Anyway, recap. Kira and Dax are in ops, chatting, with Dax bragging about how she used to break windows with rocks as a kid. As you would brag about.
Sure. Yeah.
When they are interrupted by an incoming ship requesting permission to dock, the captain notifies them that a passenger aboard needs treatment for a condition called Kala Nora. Kira is interested to meet this patient, as the only people known to have Kala Nora are the survivors of a mining accident at the Galatep labor camp in Bajor, which was the site of many atrocities under the Cardassian occupation. Kira has a personal connection to this camp, as she helped liberate it 12 years ago. However, when she gets to the infirmary, she finds that the patient is a Cardassian.
Bum bum bum.
Kira immediately calls for Odo to come arrest the man, as he must be a war criminal. The patient makes a weak attempt to flee, and I mean a really weak attempt, but is immediately caught by Odo. He kind of half-heartedly, jogs out the door, right into Odo's open arms.
It's true, he does. Actually, hold on, going back a step.
Uh-huh.
When Dax is talking about breaking windows, and Kira's like, which you were you even talking about as a kid? I don't remember. Does she actually answer that?
No, she doesn't even say, because I think that's when the ship calls.
That's a shame. I want to know the answer to that. So.
I mean, I would assume it was Jadzia, but yeah, with her, you never know. And that's just a weird... she's just so proud of her... Oh yeah, I caused all kinds of property damage. I was the worst. When questioned by Sisko, the Cardassian, whose name is Maritza, claims he has never even been to Bajor, that the condition he has isn't Kala Nora, even though they said earlier that it was.
Well, yeah, the ship's captain said that it was, but what does he know?
I mean, how... Did he just look at that guy and say, oh, that guy has Kala Nora?
The guy's excuse is I have this other symptom. It's very similar to Kala Nora, and also the medicine is the same. But yeah, my question is but then why would the ship's captain have said Kala Nora? I doubt that he's super familiar with this disease.
Yeah, I would assume that he just said, I have Kala Nora, can I go to the station? But what do I know?
Right. Well, I mean, we find out later that, he's intentionally trying to get caught lying or whatever. So
yeah, it makes sense in the whole story. He claims he is simply being treated unfairly for being a Cardassian on a Bajoran station. A drunken Bajor in a nearby cell sees Maritza and expresses outrage for being kept in the same brig as a Cardassian, seeming to prove Maritza's point. Bashir reports to Sisko that Maritza definitely has Kala Nora, not the other thing, once again demonstrating the Federation's lax attitude toward patient privacy, and confirms that the only way he could have gotten the condition is if he was at the labor camp at the time of the accident.
It is weird that this disease is only caused by this one thing ever.
Right.
But-
Well, it's like Gulf War syndrome. It's I can kind of buy it. I don't know where that name comes from, Kalanora, but...
Yeah, I would have expected it to be like the Galatep disease or something,
Yeah.
but who knows?
Yeah. Despite pressure from the Bajoran government, Sisko insists on a proper investigation to confirm Maritza's identity before turning him over for trial. Kira begs to be put in charge of the investigation, which Sisko initially resists, but he eventually relents when Kira makes a passionate speech about how important this case is to her and the Bajoran people. Kira confronts Maritza with the medical findings, and he freely admits he was at Galatep, but only as a file clerk. And he brags kind of weirdly about how good of a file clerk he is, which I kind of question, but anyway.
And he teaches filing.
Yeah, I guess he must be pretty good. He teaches filing. I've never heard of a filing class before, but there you go.
I've never been to military college, So.
True. Yeah, they may have whole classes on filing. He claims the rumors of brutality at Galatep were only a psyop to demoralize the Bajorans. He taunts Kira for being disappointed that he's not the villain she wants him to be, which later, in a talk with Dax, Kira admits that he may be right about her.
Yep.
In a call with Sisko, Gul Dukat, yay, Gul Dukat's finally back, insists that Maritza is innocent and makes veiled threats about what will happen if he's turned over to the Bajorans. Or very thinly veiled threats. Odo's investigation seems to corroborate Maritza's story. They are able to find an old picture of Maritza at Galatep, but it does not match. However, after some zoom and enhance action, they are able to identify the man in their cell as none other than Gul Darheel, the commander of the labor camp.
Some really crazy zoom and enhance action where it's like part of his face is blocked by someone else, and they're like, we'll eliminate the person standing in front of him and like reconstruct his face somehow.
Well, it's even more than that, where it's like you could see his face, and then they like changed the angle so that a rock was covering his face, and then they changed it some more to where the rock was passed by him. So, but I mean, these are like hollow cameras, presumably, or whatever, so I kind of buy it. Maritza immediately admits to being Gul Darheel and starts going on a megalomaniacal rant about how proud he is of all the atrocities he committed. He's like, yeah, I did that stuff, and I liked it, and I'm proud of it. Very interesting tactic when your life is on the line. He belittles Kira and her Shakar resistance cell. Afterwards, Kira is stewing in Odo's office, and Odo brings up the point of how Gul Darheel knew that Kira was in the Shakar. Although I have to say, to quote Margie Gunderson, I'm not quite sure I agree with Odo's police work here.
I mean, apparently this is the first time we've ever heard the name of the Shakar resistance cell, so it can't be that well known.
Well, I mean, they presumably liberated the camp, right?
True.
So I would think he would know about them just from that. And I think she mentioned that she was part of the liberation. I could be wrong about that, but...
She does several times, but I don't remember when she tells him that, so...
Yeah. I could have sworn she told him that at some point early on, but maybe not. And even if so, like, it just could be well known through her sort of fame as the first officer of Deep Space Nine. Like, I assume that would be reported in the news at some point at this, station that's guarding the wormhole or whatever, and has a Bajoran first officer.
Yeah.
Minor point. I think, Odo's probably right to be suspicious, though. Kira goes back to ask Maritza / Darheel how he knew that, and he claims that he read her name in some report long ago, which is a pretty lame excuse. Odo calls up Dukat and says that Maritza is now claiming to be Darheel. Dukat insists that's not possible, that Darheel is dead, and that half of Cardassia viewed the body at the funeral, including him. Dukat grants Odo access to Darheel's service records, which indicate that Darheel never contracted Kalanora syndrome, as he was on Cardassia at the time, being awarded the, quote, Proficient Service Medallion.
Yeah, doesn't that sound like the highest praise ever? Your service is proficient.
I was like, what an honor. He's like, I have to go back to Cardassia. My service is being given the highest decoration for proficiency. It also seems that Maritza had been making inquiries into Kira, that he at some point got plastic surgery to look like Darhe'el, and that he recently quit his job and gave his housekeeper a generous severance bonus. And also that he deliberately asked for a transport that would be stopping at Deep Space Nine.
Well, and one of the questions at the very beginning, it's like, this guy came and apparently didn't have his medicine. And like, at the very beginning, that should draw an eye. Like, wait, why is he traveling without his medicine?
Yeah, maybe he lost it or something. People lose their medicine when traveling all the time, so... I feel like several points like that in his story were kind of not questioned. Like, also, where is he going on this transport? But, yeah. Kira confronts the prisoner with this new evidence. He at first tries to deny it, but quickly breaks down, admitting that he is Maritza, the file clerk, and that he hatched this plan to force Cardassia to face the truth of the atrocities of its past. Kira releases him and tells him that he can still help bring about change on Cardassia from the inside. However, the drunken Bajoran man from earlier suddenly jumps out and stabs Maritza in the back. Maritza seems to die in Kira's arms, mere steps away from Dr. Bashir's infirmary. Kira tells the drunk that it wasn't Darhe'el, but the drunk says that being Cardassian is reason enough to die. Kira says, no, it's not. In the gathering crowd, Morn silently observes the scene and contemplates the best way to discreetly step around and get to the Jumja stick stand. The end.
Sorry, I'm trying to get to the part where there's Morn and the Jumja sticks.
Well, he's not at the Jumja stick stand. I just imagine he's trying to get there. It's like the very last shot.
They were like, oh, we forgot to put Morn in here. Hurry up.
Yeah.
Get him in the last shot.
And in the last episode when you said he played a human DS9 resident,
yeah,
I went into kind of a deep rabbit hole trying to find, his name's like Mark Allen Shepard or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I did find him. You can see it if you watch the YouTube version of that episode. I included a screenshot. Okay, so my main complaint about this episode, it's not even a complaint about this episode, it's more about the season overall, is that I think they've learned by now that Nana Visitor is a pretty good actor, and that the Kira character is very compelling, and you can make some really good stories with her.
Yeah.
And I feel like they've gone back to that well, just maybe one too many times this season, at the detriment of other characters.
Every other character, basically.
Yeah. I mean, Odo's gotten a few good ones, especially in the last few episodes, but... other than that,
there is no doubt that Kira is getting the majority of episodes in here. Dax got like one episode that wasn't even, a great episode,
right?
And O'Brien maybe got an episode or two. Quark gets some attention, but Kira is far and away getting the most.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, the episode itself is obviously pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this episode. It's interesting that you're like, she's a good actor. They're giving her more to do, basically. I feel like at the beginning of the episode, she's really kind of overacting it. Like,
you think?
I started the episode, and when she's like yelling about the Cardassian and whatever, and I was just like, I think you're a little over the top. Like later, when you're more emotionally involved, this level makes sense. But right now, like, bring it down a couple notches. Let's get here gradually.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't really have that complaint when I was watching it, but I guess I can't really argue it too much. So you said it was based on a play called The Man in the Glass Box?
Yes.
So,
which is about let's see, it's interesting because I went into a rabbit hole today trying to learn about this play after I read that. So the play is about a guy, like a rich Jewish guy who's living in New York, and he lost his family like in a concentration camp. And then like Mossad shows up and grabs him and puts him on trial because they say that he is basically that he was the guy in charge of the concentration camp, and that he like stole the identity of a dead Jew to like escape after the war ended. And so they have him in a glass box during the trial to prevent like assassination.
What it reminded me of, a few things. But one is the case of a guy named John, and I think it's pronounced Demyanyuk, who was a Ukrainian immigrant living in America, and he got extradited back to Israel after being accused of being a guard at Treblinka, a notoriously brutal guard called Ivan the Terrible. And he was put on trial and found guilty and sentenced to death. Even though because I saw a documentary about this a long time ago, and I read a bunch more about it today on Wikipedia. During the trial, one of the he was identified by, I think, like 5 survivors of Treblinka or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, who was like one of the most emphatic that it was him, like the defense pulled out this like really old document that was like, yeah, but when you were liberated from Treblinka, you were interviewed by Nazi hunters. And at the time you told them that Ivan the Terrible had been killed in a prisoner uprising. And then so that sparked this kind of like huge public outrage of like, how come we can't just take the Holocaust survivors' word for things?
Huh.
Even though it was pretty clearly proven that at some point that guy had been lying.
Yeah.
And he claimed he was lying back then to like, feel like a big man or whatever. So, but anyway, yeah, he was in jail in Israel until in 1993, the year this episode came out. And I don't know exactly where in the stage of things this whole situation was when this episode was being written. But basically, the Soviet Union had trials, had their own series of trials for Soviet citizens who collaborated with the Nazis.
Okay.
And tons of them were Treblinka guards. And I think, and most of them were executed, like, at that time, like, after World War II, like, in the 40s or 50s.
Mm-hmm.
But 37 of them, in their statements, had identified Ivan the Terrible, and it was a completely different guy. And it's like 21 of them had described him physically, and it was definitely, like, a different physical description, and, like, there was even a photograph that was clearly of a different guy. And so, like, based on that, they had to, like, overturn his conviction and send him back to America. Luckily, he wasn't executed yet. Although it was determined that he probably was a guard at Sobibor and 2 other camps.
Oh.
But just not at Treblinka. Because, like, one of the key pieces of evidence against him was they, like, found his, like, ID card for the, like, group that was used as guards at those camps.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he's just some random innocent guy.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, no. And, like, the reason they caught him in the first place was because Ukraine, I forget the whole story, but Ukraine had turned over a list of Ukrainians living in America that they suspected of being Nazi collaborators. And so that's how he was originally gotten onto. So, yeah, he wasn't totally innocent, but it was this very weird case where he was accused of being one guy, and then he was, like, a completely different guy. And, like, as a result of that, the Israelis just gave up on prosecuting him. Although much later, the Germans decided to take a crack at it, but by that time, he was, like, 90 years old, and he died before he was convicted. But I was reading about that, and I was just kind of wondering, like, if maybe some of that stuff going on was in the news, because it's very similar, like, a case of, like, is this the right guy, or is it not the right guy?
Right.
But, I mean, yeah, apparently, I guess the play has that same plot, so maybe it had nothing to do with it.
According to the thing about the play, it's based loose or inspired by the kidnapping and trial of Adolf Eichmann.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
that's another thing that it reminded me of, because I saw this movie a few years ago, and I don't know if it's a true story or not, but the movie is about, like, a documentary filmmaker who goes to film the trial of Eichmann.
Yeah.
And, like, his whole, like, his mission in doing this is to, like, he wants to catch Eichmann in a human moment. Like, his plan is just to point a camera at Eichmann at all times. He's like, at some point, he's got to break down and prove that he's just a human being like the rest of us.
Okay.
Because his whole thesis is, like, no one's immune from, like, devolving into that kind of evil. And that we all kind of have the capacity to, like, do horrible things if put in the right situation. But to his disappointment, like, Eichmann never gives him what he wants. And stays like a horrible, like, haughty Nazi till the very end.
Well, that's a shame. Kind of ruined his whole thing.
Yep. I forgot what that movie was called, but
the worst thing Eichmann ever did.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and then also, now that we're talking about it, have you ever seen the movie Mother Night?
No.
Which is, I guess, based on a Kurt Vonnegut book.
Mm-mm.
But it's about this like guy he's an American living in Germany, and when the war breaks out, he becomes a propagandist for the Germans.
Tisk.
But really, he's a spy working for the Americans the whole time.
Okay.
And then that's like the first half of the movie, and the last half of the movie is like he goes back to America, and then like the Mossad catches him and brings him back to Israel for trial. But like the CIA won't like vindicate him because they want to be able to use the exact same trick in the next war.
Nice.
But then it's him wrestling with like whether he did more good as a spy or bad as a propagandist. Because there's one scene when like there's this like one Nazi officer who's suspicious of him the whole time, and like when the war is ending, like the officer like catches him and he's like, you know what, I used to think you were a spy, but now I realize you've done so much good for our cause, there's no way whatever you did as a spy like canceled that out, so I'm just gonna forgive you and let you go.
Well, there you go.
It was an interesting movie / book, I assume.
Yeah, in this play, the guy also turns out to like not be a Nazi. He was like intentionally, he falsifies dental records so that the Israelis will grab him and bring him to trial. Although, and this is what set me down the rabbit hole, is in like the wiki article, it doesn't say why he did that. And so I started Googling all over the place to find like a more comprehensive summary of the play to figure out like how this happens and why he's doing this. And I could not find it. I'm going to have to go and like get the play and read the play to find out the answer to this question.
So you're saying he did want to get caught and accused of being that guy?
Yes.
So maybe his plan is just the same, just maybe he's coming at it from like a Jewish perspective rather than a German perspective or whatever.
I'm trying to the guy in the show is doing, he's like, well, we Cardassians need to be punished. I'm not sure why a Jewish guy who was in a concentration camp would be doing it. I'm like,
well, I mean, because he wants the Germans to be punished.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Although it doesn't quite hold up because at that time the Third Reich was no more. So,
right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, and apparently one of the things that I found said that either it's also a movie that got made later after the book and the play, but one of the versions, I don't know if it's the movie or the play, apparently has a lot of, it's supposed to be thought-provoking about how much the Jewish attitude contributed to their own suffering during the Holocaust or something like that. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective to take. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird way to put that.
Yeah. Well, apparently he has a big rant about how like the Jews were sheep and they blah, 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 blah. And give some examples of how that's, I don't know. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go out and actually read this play or maybe watch the movie to figure out exactly what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
An interesting, okay, so moving away from that.
Sure.
An interesting note that the wiki has is that this is one of only a few DS9 episodes that does not have a subplot. It is just a single plot story. That
is one of the notes I have written down, is that there's no B story or even any pointlessly shoving in of other characters. It's like all Kira, Odo, and Cisco.
It's very hyper-focused. Yeah, Bashir doesn't even really get much chance to horn his way in.
Bashir's there for the stuff that you would need Bashir for.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, Quark shows up to have one little comedic moment where he wonders if like the camp survivors like to gamble.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. That's true.
And I think it always makes a story really strong when they're kind of brave enough to do that. When they're like, okay, we don't need a lot of Dax right now. We don't need a lot of Quark right now. Let's just focus on what the story needs.
Yep. And given that like pretty much all the episodes we've watched so far have had an A and B story. Maybe Dax didn't. I don't recall. Unless you count Odo and Odo's investigation as a B story, which I wouldn't really. But like, it gives a very different feel to the whole thing when everything is focused on this one story. Yeah,
definitely. And I definitely think that's one of like the things that makes it like a really good watchable episode.
Mm-hmm. It's not something that I picked up on when I was watching, but when I read it after the fact, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. No, I definitely noticed. I don't know, like when I was watching, but like reflecting on it, I was like, yeah, there's like, and we get a little bit of Dax. Like Dax is just like a listening ear for Kira at one point, or whatever. And then she tells her weird story about breaking windows. which I don't know what the point of that was, but no Jake, Sisko, or Nog.
Nope.
Those guys, Jake, Sisko, and Nog, are like, they are the B story. Like that is their domain. That is where they live.
Does O'Brien even show up in this one? I don't recall.
O'Brien?
Yeah.
He definitely is there, because there was a scene. He's there in their zoom and enhance scene.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because he's there poking around in the weird isolinear rod thing you do.
Oh, yeah, because he's got a new assistant or whatever. After that one that was like really conspicuous in that earlier episode, he has a new conspicuous assistant.
That's the number one thing that made me notice it, because I was like, wait, is that the same assistant he had before, or is this a new assistant?
It is not. Apparently, it was intended to be the same person, and then there's just a small note in here that that original person just didn't work out. And I was like, oh, there's got to be a story there, but I could not find the story, if there is one.
That just really stuck out to me, like why they had this little scene that didn't really contribute any to the episode of them like just working on this little thing. It's like, okay, we got it, sir. And I was like, are they trying to sneakily wedge her into the series? Or
this episode is also apparently the beginning of a theme that will continue with Cardassians throughout the series, that they like to talk.
I think we learned that in what was the one? You know the one I'm talking about. In Next Gen with Captain Picard, the Four Lights episode.
Oh yeah, that guy did like to talk.
I think it kind of helps though that they keep, giving
chain of command is the
That's right. That's right.
And let's see I gotta see when that one aired now. Hold on.
It was like right before the pilot of this, because I remember us talking about that.
So Chain of Command airs December 1992.
Yeah. And the pilot for this was like January 1st or 2nd, something, 1993. But yeah, I think it helps that they get these really good actors to play the Cardassian villains. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, you just want to give those guys stuff to say.
I mean, this guy's carrying this episode. Like,
sure.
I know it's like a big Kira episode and she has a lot in it, but really this guy just has speech after speech after speech.
Yeah. I mean, everything, like the way he plays, when he's playing it being like the big, haughty Goldar heel, and then when, he has his breakdown, it was just all really great. And I looked him up, Harris Yulin. He's just one of those guys you see in tons of stuff.
Oh, yeah?
He was the judge in Ghostbusters 2.
He totally is the judge in Ghostbusters 2. Okay. I absolutely recognize that now.
But he's just still out there working. Like, he was in Ozark. I'm not quite sure, because I haven't watched Ozark in a while, but I think he's the guy that he's like a dying old man who, like, the main characters live in his house and he lives in the basement. And they've made this arrangement that they'll inherit the house when he dies, but he's like just this cranky old man all the time. And, apparently he's in Billions for a few episodes. So, like, he's still out there doing it.
Looks like the last thing he did was 2020, so...
Maybe he slowed down a little bit. Maybe he's retired. I don't know, but...
He's in an episode of The Blacklist. I remember that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm scrolling down his thing now.
He was in Rubicon, one of my favorite one-season wonders.
Oh, he's in a couple episodes of Buffy. Okay. Training Day. He's a cardinal in an episode of The X-Files.
Oh, Hollywood AD.
Yeah.
Is that that's the episode where the Mulder and Scully are getting a movie made about them?
Ah, that makes sense.
Oh, and that's the one about the the Lazarus Bowl. Apparently, the lore is that, like, while Jesus was raising Lazarus from the dead, a guy nearby was making a bowl, but like a little straw got stuck in the clay and it created a phonograph effect. So if you stick a straw back in there and spin the bowl, it'll play Jesus's words, bringing Lazarus back to life, and you can bring anybody back to life.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on in that episode of The X-Files.
Apparently.
Because it's not that case. It's like Mulder and Scully are like consulting on a movie being made about that case of theirs or something like that.
I can see how you could make a movie out of that case, sure.
Oh, yeah, and Téa Leoni plays Scully, and Gary Shandling plays Mulder.
Well, now I'm looking at the guy who plays the Bajoran, who kills him. He has not been in a lot of stuff. I mean, he's in a few things. Like, his third credit from the top is Sweet Home Alabama. So that's
yeah.
That's how recently he's working.
You know, I want to give credit where credit's due. That guy was good for that part.
Yep. He plays a racist murdering guy / drunkard.
Mm-hmm.
I believed it.
Very, very good. So applause to that guy, whatever his name is.
His name is Tony Rizzoli.
Okay. I saw that name, and I saw a bunch of names in the credits. Sometimes I'm just like watching the names in the credits, and I'm like, wow, how are there so many guest stars in the episode?
Well, apparently this episode specifically was constructed as a bottle episode that would cost... okay, so the way the guy tells it... Hold on, I gotta find the exact quote, because it was... the writer says... Or somebody says... They said, "Hey, Pete," so Peter Allen Fields, "can you do us a favor? Can you please write a show that costs nothing?" And I said, "Of course, be glad to." And then you leave the office because you said yes to your boss and you die 1,000 deaths.
Nice. I mean, presumably they had to pay, like, at least the guest stars some money.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, there wasn't even that many guest stars. You had, like, the one guy in the whole episode, and, like, the major actors didn't even have to show up much. I don't know if they pay them per episode, though. They probably get, like, a per
Come to think of it, there were, like, 0 special effects in this episode, and, like, no new sets. Like, I think they talked about beaming at one point, but they didn't even show it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess there's the like, cell force fields.
I'm surprised they didn't just have, like, Gul Dukat show up at the station. But I guess they're like, I guess that wouldn't make any sense. Let's spend the extra money for the video phone effect.
No, but then you only have to, like, put him in some of his makeup and costume.
That's true. So he's probably just wearing, like, jean shorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Under his cart, like, he's got his Cardassian armor top, and he's, like, on his way to the beach after he films that, like, 5 minutes of dialogue.
Yep.
Although I was very happy to see Gul Dukat. I've been missing him all season. He was, like, set up as the villain in the pilot, and they just never came back to him.
Maybe we'll see some of him next season.
Maybe. I hope he comes back in the show.
Yep.
I hope we get more Gul Dukat. Who knows if we will or not. I hope we get more Garrick.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm missing. Is like, where's Garrick in all this? Let's go talk to him at his tailor shop. Maybe he knows Goldar Heel.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm frankly, like, some of these, like, definitely in this case, it might be good to just go ask Garrick. He's like, hey, do you know anything about Goldar Heel? Do you know what he looks like? Or it's like, could you identify him if you saw him? Because apparently he was a pretty famous guy on Cardassia.
Yeah.
He's buried under, like, one of their largest military monuments or whatever.
It makes me wonder how many people they bury under that, if they're, like, burying this guy there.
I imagine it's probably, it's like getting buried at Westminster Abbey or whatever. But probably even bigger and grander. Okay, last note I have is that I feel like there are several fatal flaws in Maritza's plan. And one is the one that did him in, which is that Goldar Heel did not have Kalanora disease.
Not that he can really do anything about that. Like, he can't fake not having it, so... True.
Well, because that's the way he got himself caught.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he kind of has to admit that he has it, but...
I mean, even if he found another way to get caught, he would still need his medicine for it.
True.
So...
Yeah, at some point he'd have to fess up, so...
Yeah.
So I don't know if he just didn't know that, or he was just hoping they wouldn't notice it.
Yeah, I feel like... Because they wouldn't have known it if they hadn't gotten Gul Dukat to, like, let them into the Cardassian records.
Mm-hmm.
So how like, is your average dude going to think, oh, I'm sure the Bajoran government and the Cardassian government are good friends and work together all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the bigger issue, even beyond that, was the fact that apparently Goldar Heel died 6 years ago and had very public funeral and so on.
I don't know. He did kind of a half-hearted attempt to explain that, didn't he? But yeah, that is a kind of a problem. But yeah, I think he must have been banking pretty heavily on the fact that they just wouldn't trust anything that the Cardassians said.
I think what he's really banking on is because he thinks as soon as he reveals himself, like, she comes back like the same day. And he's like, why aren't you guys taking me to Bajor already? I think that he thinks that they don't care. Like, that they're not going to ask any questions. The Bajorans are as racist as that one guy proves to be, and they're just going to want to execute him immediately.
Okay, could be.
After a big public trial.
Yeah. We may never know, because he's dead, and he's never coming back to...
Unless the Lazarus Bowl shows up.
Yeah. That's spoiler alert, but... when...
Season 3 episode Lazarus Bowl.
Yeah. I mean... I always thought that was kind of a weird episode. It didn't really fit in with the... or maybe like the Bajoran equivalent of the Lazarus Bowl. I don't know.
The Bowl of the Prophets.
Yep. But yeah, so what else about his plan? I think he should have been better prepared for that being found out anyway.
He probably should have gotten his plastic surgery more in secret than he did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe go to a different planet and have it done, and then take the drugs or whatever, and then come back.
Yeah, I was never quite clear. Is the planet... I guess the planet he lives on is not a Cardassian planet. Because they're able to pretty easily get, like, records and stuff from that planet.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. It does sound like maybe it's like a third party, sort of... And I'm going to look it up and see if there's any information. It was Cora 2. Well,
Yeah.
But he's at a Cardassian military academy there.
I think they just said military academy. I don't know if they ever said Cardassian military academy.
Okay. Cora 2 was a Cardassian planet located in the Alpha Quadrant.
Oh, okay. I guess it's just easier to get kind of like general information from them than like, military service records or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. But I just love how, they're going for this reduced budget show, and I think have easily come out with the best episode of the season.
That's true.
And it may just play into what, like, Deep Space Nine's strengths are throughout the whole series, is, like, these character stories, these character moments and stuff are a very, like, strong part of what makes the show good.
Yeah. I guess it just kind of forces them, instead of like having a big special effects adventure, they kind of have to focus on that episode of it, or that aspect of it. I mean, you always hear stories about how like some of the best stuff comes from like budget limitations or stuff like that. So
according to the wiki, the original premise of the episode was like, what would happen if you had to defend your worst enemy? And it was going to be like there's a war criminal, and there's going to be like a trial for the war criminal, kind of like a Nuremberg episode, basically.
Sure.
And then they're like, well, we already did a court episode. We did Dax, so we're not going to do another one so soon.
They don't... I guess they feel like that Dax episode was good.
Yeah.
And that they don't need to redeem it.
But apparently the pitch was from 2 of the interns on the show, so, good for them. It ended up going well.
Oh, is that who Lisa Rich and Gene Kerrigan Fauci are?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Well, they got themselves a nice little writing credit on the episode.
Yeah, see?
I bet they get some nice residuals from that. I bet when I clicked on that episode, they each got like half a cent or something.
And see, that's why you become an intern. At a studio like this. You get to get your foot in the door and throw out some ideas every once in a while, even if they're then like, no, your idea is stupid, and then they do it anyway, but they let somebody else write it because they're gonna make it different than what you wanted to do.
Well, good for them at any rate.
So apparently Leonard Nimoy starred in a production of The Man in the Glass Booth.
Nice little
weird
was he the man in the glass booth?
I guess he must have been, because as far as I can tell, like, that play and the movie are like almost all monologues by the guy in the booth. Like, he has to carry the entire show more or less. So
neat. So you got any more points?
I know that this is generally, like, in the list that I've read, it's like in the top DS9 episodes rated often.
Sure.
So I'm not terribly surprised by that.
Yeah.
But
this is sometimes I disagree. We'll see as we go along, obviously, but it's pretty strong.
And see, this is one of those episodes that they could, they could HDify it. They could remaster it without too much trouble, because it doesn't have a lot of those special effects and stuff.
That would be interesting if they did a sort of HD re-release, like select episodes remastered.
That's the way they started with the Next Generation remaster, was they put out like a DVD with like 5 episodes or something that were remastered, and to gauge like how popular this would be.
whoever, Paramount or whoever, you need to get on this. Because it was just like, I've told you before how, like, sometimes I grab screenshots from the Next Gen or something, and then I reopen the Deep Space Nine. It just hurts my eyes. It's like I can't quite focus. It's like I'm wearing the wrong prescription or something when I switch from HD to one of these old Deep Space Nine episodes.
It is sad. I mean, I guess the Next Generation Blu-rays didn't do as well as they needed to justify it. I bought them. Or then again, I bought like the British version because they came out in England first, and I was not going to wait, so I bought those. But
at least they did the whole series.
Yep.
So
it looks very nice.
And I always love watching those Next Gen remasters. They just look so.
They look great.
Even though you can like sometimes like see the seams on Worf's makeup or Data's wig or something. It's just very pleasant to watch.
Completely random side note that you may want to cut out, but they just announced that Aubrey Plaza is joining the cast of the WandaVision spinoff, Agatha: Coven of Chaos.
Oh.
So it'll be Aubrey Plaza, the lady who plays Catherine Hahn, who played Agatha, and apparently also Emma Caulfield Ford from Buffy.
Are any of these people like known characters? Or have they announced who the characters are?
I don't think they've announced who the characters are. I mean, obviously Catherine Hahn is still Agatha Harkness, but other than that, I don't think they've... Oh, wait, hold on. Emma Caulfield Ford will return to her WandaVision role of Dottie. Okay, so she's existing also. Okay.
Oh, she was one of the housewives or whatever.
Yeah, I believe so.
In the WandaVision. Okay. Was she like kind of the queen housewife lady?
Yes, she was.
Okay, interesting.
It's interesting that she's going to return in that same role. So if she was like a brainwashed townsperson, but
that still remains my favorite Disney Plus Marvel show.
That is an excellent Disney Plus Marvel show. I think that on my list, She-Hulk might beat it because She-Hulk was so fun.
Well, don't say that. Our people we get impressions from She-Hulk haters.
I mean, Loki might beat it because Loki was so fun.
Yeah. Well, Loki was pretty good though.
No, yeah, I love Loki. Like, I think we were talking about it in like in the Discord that I'm in with Comic Book Movies guys, and for me, it's like there's like a top 4 or 5, and I'm like, these are all good, and on any given day you might be able to rearrange them, and then there's like the bottom 3 that I'm like, these aren't as good.
Yeah. I still haven't seen She-Hulk. If you hate She-Hulk, then too late. You've already watched us for 50 minutes. And,
She-Hulk hating people. Yeah, you'll have to come over. We'll do like She-Hulk and Werewolf by Night or whatever.
Sure. Marvel catch-up part 2. Anyway, you want to get into ratings for this episode?
Yeah. Let's rate this episode. So for me, the only question here is this a captain, or do I like break the mold entirely and be like, this is an admiral?
Oh my gosh.
And just because I feel like that would be more of a hassle for you in particular when you're editing and trying to put it in there, I'm going to call it captain. This is going to be...
My little script that generates the little symbols does not have an admiral symbol programmed in, and I do not want to make it do that. So
yes, this is going to be captain for me. My first captain rating since we started this show. I think that this episode is the first one that deserves it.
I will also give it a captain. I'm not tempted to give it an admiral. I feel like we need some other captains before we start doing that, but
yeah, that was another one of the reasons that I was like, I haven't given a single captain yet. I really should do that before I just skip over captain.
It's like we need to set the bar for captain and then prove that the episode goes even beyond that bar before we start admiraling episodes. So, but yeah, totally. I can think of very few like legitimate complaints with the episode. Pretty much every aspect was well done.
Yep.
Especially the acting. It was very well written. What else do you need?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a big special effects stunt fest to make a good episode, is what we learned here.
I'm not saying I don't enjoy that, but
no, right? Yeah, I mean, if at some point this show were to have giant space battles with like 100 ships, then I wouldn't complain about that. But I'm just saying,
to the point where you're almost complaining about, wow, there's too many ships.
But I wouldn't complain.
Right. Well, who knows? Who knows what may be in the future of this show?
Yep.
I mean, crazy time travel, alternate universes, I can't even imagine. So
I mean, we've already had the mirror universe, haven't we? Oh no, we haven't done that yet.
no, we haven't.
Never mind. Sorry, cut that out.
What's the mirror universe in Deep Space Nine?
What?
You mean the thing from the original series?
Yeah,
No.
No way this show would ever revisit original series material like that blatantly.
Yeah.
So we are almost through with this season. We have,
Yep.
one more episode?
We got one more episode, and then we will do our season 1 wrap up, and then we will move on to season 2.
So if this last episode, the season finale, better be really good. The bar was set high by this penultimate episode.
Yep. Well, we shall see. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts? No.
Other than those ones you said?
Yeah, other than all the final thoughts I already had. No. Wait, you said we got a comment about somebody watching it. Was it like on one of the episodes or?
Yes, it was on the pilot.
Oh, okay. That's a good ways back. It would have taken me a long time to
From
look that back.
Board Now, who Board Now has his own channel, which I guess I'll just link to it. Friend of the channel, or not enemy of the channel yet.
But by the time they get here, they will be.
Yeah,
Especially because in this comment they call him Siskel,
yeah.
which I couldn't not call out. So as soon as they get to this point, they'll have watched this far and be like, "What? They're insulting my spelling? Screw these guys!"
Yeah, and on the episode 3, he also left a comment where he called Kira Kara and Bashir Bashir.
That's fine. He can be Bashir. I don't mind that.
Yeah. I'm not offended for Dr. Bashir. But I don't. A lot of people, it seems like, do text to speech these days when they're typing stuff.
Sure.
I don't know if that's part of it, but because you see, like, I've just been noticing more and more these crazy misspellings, and when you call them out, they're always like, "Oh, I was doing text to speech or speech to text or whatever."
I had my autocorrect change the word "is" to the word "I'd" today, and I was like, I hit send before I noticed it, and I'm like, "No, you ruined my entire thought."
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? Is correct. We have become slaves to our technology.
Yeah.
I better not upload a video where I say the words was
Yeah,
correct.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. Do 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 do.